Hi, I'm Sujal, and this is my high-level overview of everything that I did in the creation of Tidytopia. So, my very first task was to implement the idea that we had of having randomized textures for all assets present in the game. And to do this, I worked on this blueprint right here, which does one thing only, which has this material array that every material has, and it will pick a random integer, and this is when the game starts to play, and it'll assign that random integer based on the array and that material onto the texture, onto the asset. For example, this is the bookshelf present in the game. It has these three materials, and whenever the games run, it will randomly have one of those materials attached to it. Like right over here. Right now, they're kind of dark, and when I get here, this one's lighter, this one stays darker, and I can play again, and this time both are still dark. So this let the game feel more fresh, and it increased the replayability of the game, which is what we were hoping for. The next thing that I worked on was a lot of the music that's present in the game. All of us looked for assets to use for the music, and then it was my responsibility to implement all those sound files into the game. So I had talked to Kyle, and he helped me convert all these audios into cues, which allowed me to be able to actually edit them. I lowered their volume multiplier to make sure all the volumes were at a stable level, so that one wasn't just overpowering the others. And I also set them to looping, like the background music and the moss music. Both of these are looping, but if I open this bump cue, it is not looping, because this only needs to be played once. So that's what majority of my time went into, and you can hear it. You're able to hear the dust bunny sounds of them being exploded. You can still hear the background music, and you can even hear the player firing. All of these are blending together because I was able to edit each one of these individually and make sure all of them work together with each other. Another thing that I worked on was the intro sequence present at the very start of the game. This can be seen right over in this level, as when I play it, two characters appear. Well, one for now. It's Lily, and when I press left click, that appears. I just have a text box. Right over here is just a text box and another one, and all of these switch in and out based on different variables present in their event graph. So Lily appear is... So everything is in its own structure. So if I go to the twin stick game mode, right over in the variables, I have... Oh, not twin stick, sorry. I mean cutscene game mode. So in cutscene game mode, I have two variables over here, three variables. I have two string arrays, each one containing... This has all the lines that are being said, and this has the names of the character who are saying these. These two work together with each other, and current line represents what line is currently being talked about. So what happens in over here is in update text, it's checking. It takes in the dialogue array, it checks if it's on the current line, and then it outputs, this is the character who's saying it. So this one outputs either Dad or Lily based on who's talking. Then I do... this just outputs the text, while character name is the one that actually outputs who's talking, dialogue name. So this one checking what's on the current line and outputting just whoever's name is in the array, while Lily appear and Dad appear are a bit different. What they do is they loop through all the variables, they check if it's the current line, and they check for Tidytopia if it's dad who's currently talking. If this returns both of these return true, that means dad's talking and his opacity is set to full, 100% to make him appear. But if the entire loop finished and this never triggered, that means it wasn't dad talking, so his opacity is set to 0, which makes him invisible. And a similar thing happens for Lily, and the only difference is instead of dad, it says Lily in this variable right here. So that's everything related to the intro scene, and the next thing that I worked on was related to music again, which was playing sound effects whenever certain things were taking place. For example, in the twin stick mode, right over here, I check, oh, is this the final level? And this is on event begin play. So when the level just loads in, it checks if it's the final level, and if it is, it's going to play the boss music, and if not, it's going to play the background music. This variable I'll talk about a bit later. So it plays all that music, and since it's looping, it only needs to be played once, and it'll keep on playing until it's stopped. And going back to the hero character, one of the first things that I actually worked on was the dash mechanic for the hero. So what happens is, when I enter any level, let's just go to level 3 over here, I can play, I can make some room, and whenever I press spacebar, the character will run a short while in the very last direction that was pressed, and during that they're sped up, and the player is not able to move left or right, or in any direction. I had at first overcomplicated it, but after talking to Kyle, he showed me a better way, which is using the walk speed and delays, which let this code be created, which is a lot more effective and much cleaner. So what happens is, if the dash button is pressed, which is spacebar, it stops the player from moving around, it makes the character's speed faster, and then after 1 second, you can move again and the character's speed is reset. And all the way in event tick over here, it checks, oh, if the character can move, and if the character is not able to move, that means it's dashing. So it calls the dasher function, which basically says, oh, move the character by a little bit and spawn an emitter, which is the tiny sparkle that you see, which appears whenever the player is dashing. I added this to make it feel more magical, as the player is using magic to speed them up and become faster. And now back to what I was saying about the music. So what this variable here doing is getting a reference to whichever music is being currently played in the level. So whenever either the player has lost or the boss has been defeated, the music stops. Or if the level's over and the portal is about to spawn, the music stops. This is to make sure there's an audible way for the player to know that they're done the level, that something's about to change and they no longer have to fight anything more. This just makes it easier for the player to be able to be fully aware of if they actually need to do more or not. And then at the Dust Bunny, I also use the sounds where whenever the Dust Bunny bounces off of an object, it plays this bump cue sound, and I use play sound at location over here. This way the player isn't bombarded with all these bumping sounds, even though the Dust Bunny might be on this end of the level over here. So the location one allows me to be able to play the music and have the player know, oh, is the Dust Bunny's close, is it far away, or just not hear it at all if it's really far away. And it's just a quality of life thing for the player. And there is also one played when the dust bunny is destroyed. And then this is where I do another emitter, which is steam lit. It's a bit hard to see because it's colored dark brown, but it is me using the steam particle effect that's present in starter content and changing up its settings like color over life and lifetime and initial size, all of these to give the effect of a dust explosion. So, and it is spawned where the enemy currently is, and its size is also based on how big the enemy is. So if I destroy it right here, you can see it's quite big, and it's spawning wherever the dust bunny is. And I also use the rotation here just to make it look like the dust bunny did actually explode, and it's not the same rotation every time. This way it feels a bit it takes the player out of the feel of the game, as if they continually see the same kind of explosion facing them, even if the dust bunny was in a complete opposite direction. It just ruins all the immersion. Next up, I'd like to talk about a similar thing I did with the weapon, where it plays the firing sound, which continually applies, and it also spawns an emitter. It spawns the projectile, and in the projectile it spawns an emitter. So what this is basically doing is whenever the projectile is moving, it spawns a bunch of these laser sparks that I changed from the starter content and made them into pink and much shorter to give off this magical feeling, and it just spawns a lot of those to give the feeling of a magic spell. As you can see, a lot of these sparks are being left behind as what you'd expect from a kids show. And this was most of what I did, and I really enjoyed working on all these things. A lot of my time went into debugging these and other things such as the hero character and creating both of this level right over here that I designed, as well as this level over here in the shape of L. And I just had an amazing time on the project, and I really hope that you enjoy playing Tidytopia as well. Thank you a lot for watching.